Welcome back. Regular listeners, you know by now, every week we ask a workplace expert for their hot take on the world of work. Today we hear from Amy McEwen, who is one of the good guys in corporate wellbeing, having worked for huge organisations such as the EU Parliament, Samsung, Burberry, EY, and many other FTSE 100 organisations. And I bet she doesn't say what you think she'll say. Amy, the floor is yours, my friend.
But yeah, Amy McEwen. I've been in and around workplace health and mental health for the last 20 years in all different ways, from running a mental health tech startup, being in-house, and being an independent consultant for the last 7 years now. Some people know me as a hotshot global strategy consultant. Others know me as the person that took Ernst & Young to tribunal. Others know me for being a mother to my daughters. Others know me for dancing around a magical circle in Cornwall 2 weeks ago, launching my course out into the world at a shaman disco.
What I want to know, what's really annoying you at the moment? What do you believe that perhaps other people don't about work culture, health in work?
I believe well-being is on the way out. In many ways. I can see this face. I also believe that we're in the biggest shake-up of working practices since the Industrial Revolution, well-being being part of that, and actually well-being should be replaced with change right now. I've been a dinosaur in the well-being market. I ran a mental health tech startup in 2003, which was completely the wrong time, given that Facebook didn't exist, technology didn't exist, and no one was talking about mental health. So the well-being market that we see and you've talked about and we've gone to conferences on has only really been around in the last 10 years, right? The first decade of my career, I got laughed out of boardrooms for talking about mental health. Now, when I work with organisations, and I've written 3 multinational strategies so far this year, one of the things I take them to is a process of what we're actually going to call this thing, right? And where we usually end up is health and mental health, not well-being, right? So when I say well-being's on the way out, right? So in the last 10 years, this big explosion of well-being happened, right? Well-being policies, well-being roles, global well-being leads, well-being providers, and industry and well-being. And what I'm not saying is that well-being will disappear. What I'm saying is that what we're really talking about is health and mental health. Managing health and mental health at the workplace and managing change. Like teaching individuals and organisations how to work in a world that is in constant change. The market is going through a massive correction right now. It's a market that didn't exist 10 years ago. So we're talking at the market's 10 years old. It's an infant, right? And it's an infant created on the buzz of everyone caring about well-being, COVID, all of these things, right? I've watched conferences go from having no well-being providers to having exhibitions, right? What we're seeing now, though, is the retrenchment of that, because quite frankly, a lot of the things that we've seen don't work. Well-being in an organisation can be so broad often that it doesn't really do anything. It's just a buzzword. A lot of the well-being leads I've seen over the last 2-3 years in jobs have been made redundant. A lot of their roles have been wrapped into D&I roles, health and safety roles, and a lot of the providers that you and I have seen around the exhibition world either don't have much work or out of business or are struggling, right? It's been an explosion and now we're coming back.
So if we're going to, or your thought is that well-being is become kind of like a buzzword, almost like a parody of itself, then what word would you rather that people used instead of well-being?
Whatever is right for that organisation. And I'm not pushing that back. A lot of my work in organisations is working with them to really put in clear foundations and structure. So taking them back. A lot of people launched into wellbeing strategies. And where I get my work is really when an organisation is at 2 phases. Either they want to do something on health, mental health and wellbeing and they don't know where to start, so they come to me. Or increasingly, most of my work comes from we've done a lot of stuff and it's not strategic. So it's coming back to basics. But what we do as a start of anything is, what are we talking about here? What are our organisational definitions, right? So what language are we using? And then we go out to as many different demographics and teams in an organisation, and in a listening exercise or circle type format, we then hear from people about what lands. So I have in this year, 2 of the well-being strategies that started out as well-being strategies have ended up as health and mental health strategies or mental illness strategies. So it's really being very clear what we are and what we aren't talking about. In some organizations, we have ended up with a well-being strategy, but we have clearly defined what the boundaries are around well-being for that organization. Social, financial, physical, mental, and what they mean. Because it's like anything in life. If you don't have any structure or boundaries, it just becomes unbounded mess, right?
So what's going to happen to all of the people who are well-being gurus on LinkedIn? What's going to happen to them?
So in the 20 years I've been in this world, I've seen people pile in from all different directions. Right, so everybody, because everybody is interested in well-being in their personal life, right? So you've got people like your amazing wife, right, who is a psychologist who goes in, who writes strategy, who does HR stuff, who's gone off and done degrees and chartered things in psychology, right? There's been a whole industry in LinkedIn as well, which is people who've created profile for themselves talking about well-being on LinkedIn, right? A whole range of these people. And there's a whole industry, right? It seems, in people who are building a LinkedIn profile of followers. And I mean, I think now you probably have to have done, 3 TEDx talks and written at least 2 books, right? So they're instead of expertise, in many cases, I'm not saying this by all, but actually there is an industry in becoming big on social media in an area that you like to talk about and then building a career on the back of your social media profile, which flips it on its head, right? When I was a girl many, many, many years ago, you went and got some actual experience and then that was what you got employed for. Nowadays, there are people, not by any measures all, but who the experience is the number of LinkedIn followers, and they are recruited by organizations based on that.
Well. You can see now why. Yes, it was spicy. You can see now why I said that. I said that if I took some of that out of context, then we could end Amy's career. That's not true. We couldn't. Amy's awesome. But it is really important really interesting to see that well-being has become almost like a parody of itself. And obviously she knows her stuff. She's been around for like 20 something years in this game. I'd be interested to see whether the rest of the market is ready for this sort of like breaking down into health and mental health, or whether they still want well-being. You know, the whole like, I think it's Moore's curve, where you've got early adopters, late adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggard. And then you're going to have to get your entire market across to early majority or late majority to actually make some money. I think that well-being is possibly in the early to late majority. So therefore, for us to change the term means trying to change like 50% of the market the way they think about it. So I'm not sure that that's going to happen very, very quickly. But Lee, should it happen?
Yeah, I think it should be retired as a term, because it's a term that now doesn't really mean anything, which is frustrating. Yeah. And I think we heard another hot take from Dr. Audrey Tang, a psychologist very much steeped in well-being research and practice. And as she was saying, there's a move now towards much more psychosocial health. She used a brilliant analogy, didn't she, of like you fall down a hole, they're not going to teach you a training course on how to get out the hole. They're going to fix the hole. And I think that's the point. And I think that's what a lot of practitioners like Amy and myself are frustrated, because well-being has been picked up as this buzzword of these yoga, at lunch, these smoothies of fruit in the break room. It's all just gone a bit away from the actual science, not even a bit, it's completely away from the science. And what's really disheartening now is we're seeing research come out of all the different well-being interventions that organizations have in. They're not having any impact, because they're not actually putting in a way that's actually targeting the problem that they're trying to solve, because it's an off-the-shelf solution. If you work with any well-being provider who is trying to sell you an off-the-shelf solution without any kind of bespoke aspect or understanding of your organization, run, because it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Exception being like broad EAP programs, because lots of different support options in place. But it's just nonsense. And I think what really frustrates me is that there's going to be a shift towards, it doesn't work, so we won't do anything for well-being. We tried it, didn't have any impact. And it's that's not what you've done. You've used poor products and tools to solve a problem you haven't even taken the time to understand, and you're surprised it's not having an impact.
Yeah, totally agree. It's like saying well-being is like saying exercise. You know, it's not the same. Oh, I went and did some exercise. What did you do? I went for a 5-minute walk. Well, that's not gonna take you from £300 to £150. You need to have some specific advice on what you need to do for that particular thing. I'm going to blame the marketers, and I'm going to blame the entrepreneurs and the people who created this. I think that they saw the idea that well-being was a trending word, and then therefore everything to do with HR had to have the word well-being in it. But like you get apps now these days where it says with AI assistance in it, and you're like, well, it's not really AI assistance. They've just put the word AI on there because they felt like everyone else has it. So I think that, like Amy says, it's 10 years old. It's time that we did start breaking it down into sort of constituent parts, and it's time that we, like Leanne said, that we talk about individualizing the actual well-being solution rather than saying, I'm off to buy some well-being and that will hopefully solve the problem. Oh, back it up here, Steve. Let's put the well-being in the spare room. Well, not the spare room, but the cupboard.
Yeah. And I think there's growing frustration amongst other psychologists as well. I see more and more about it. I hear more and more about it. There's pushes around understanding terms. So do you know that anyone can call themselves a psychologist?
No, I didn't know that.
Anyone can call themselves a psychologist. They do an undergrad in psychology. They can call themselves a psychologist. They could not. They could just do a degree in English. They could just do an apprenticeship in electricity. They can call themselves a psychologist. There's the word term psychologist is not protected in the UK.
Oh.
So you want to be really careful. You want to look for things like occupational psychologist. That is a protected term. Dr. Craig Knight was talking about that a lot. There's lots of influencers floating around. Their little culture club on LinkedIn that are the same faces, the same people who rotate around the same corporate roles. So I'm not surprised they're being made redundant because they're not having any impact because they don't know what they're fricking doing. It's annoying. 80% of your well-being strategy should be your operational strategy. It's how your workloads are structured. It's how people are recruited. It's how people are managed. It's all of these things that actually create an environment that supports positive well-being. Not having mindfulness at lunch, not having free gym memberships. It's frustrating. So I'm with you, Amy, and I hope it does. I hope well-being explodes and goes down in flames, and something will come from those ashes that is much, much better, much more effective, science-led, data-driven, and eliminates this culture club ick that is currently on LinkedIn.
Well said. Talking of things rising from the flames and being much better, then here we are. We're about to talk about Amy's program. Now, I'm not just shilling it. I will talk about that. I'll tell you why in a second. She's got this 3-month program starting in January for organizations. She's called it Do Workplace Health Right. Again, no well-being in that title. Just to give you an idea, the program's aimed at organizations who are tired of the same stuff that Leanne was just talking about there, or the off-the-shelf pointless service tools that just... I'm not actually calling anyone out, but hi, Bob. And what
Getting cancelled.
Well, it's that algorithmic AI-driven bollocks. Anyway, so if you do want to build an amazing workplace culture, then this program is exactly what you need. Features some genuine superstars in the mental health and workplace culture world, like Peter Cheese. I'm getting so excited I can't get my words out. Peter Cheese, who is a big cheese, is the CEO of CIPD, Chartered Institute Personal Development. Is that right, Lee? Dr. Claire Fernandez, the Chief Medical Officer at the BBC, former guest and all-round superstar, and some woman called Leanne. Am I saying this right? Is it Elliott?
Elliott.
Elliott.
That's me.
So Leanne is on that course too. She is. And so this is, as I said, I'm not shilling this. I'm not saying, you should go and sign up for Amy's course because she's been on the show. It's genuine. If we didn't believe in it, we wouldn't be telling you. It's really, really good. Go to amymckeown.com. Check out the spelling in the show notes because I'm still not sure I'm saying your surname right.